QM, everybody. Welcome to another one of our weekly broadcasts. We are getting back in the swing of things. I know some of you were a little bit disappointed to hear that we had to delay it by a day, but unfortunately I had a death in the family, and unfortunately that kind of took precedence. But we are moving on from that, and we are proceeding with the dev update call for today. Thank you all for attending. As always, quick disclaimer, the tokens that we will be talking about in this broadcast, including the Quill and Wrapped Quill tokens, are utility tokens of the network, and we do not encourage or suggest the notion of trading or speculation on the network's utility token. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about today. I'm going to pull this up again, still dealing with some fun stuff with Streamlabs. Kind of a pain at times, but I make it work. All right, there we go. Cool. All right, so dev updates. We're going to talk, as always, our mission is to secure every bit of traffic on the internet, whether Q native, other decentralized protocols, or the broader web itself, and you're going to see quite a bit of that going on today. The ways in which we do this are through native secure applications and development tools, API-compatible tooling, and enhancing the privacy of other protocols, all of which we will be discussing in depth today. First things first, version 2.10.18, as far as dev progress goes, we got over a major sync hurdle. It's been a real thorn in our side, and we've been trying to diagnose it left and right, finally came to a conclusion on what it was, and have fixed that. We do have another automatic migration that will be needed for old versions that'll be shipping in the final product, as well as in the development branch that some people are running. And also a seniority bug fix. Some folks have reported in incorrect seniority. That is going to be fixed in the update as well. As far as current health goes, this was taken about 15 minutes before this broadcast. About 67 shards are at halt risk. 663 need coverage, but we are now at over 2,000 healthy shards. There's about 3,000 in total. Once we get to at least needs coverage instead of the halt risk, the network will be fully kicking into motion, and the Quill token shards will be unlocked, and transaction processing will be able to proceed for that. Outside of those things, though, we, as I've said before, support alt-fee basis app shards, which enable us to do some really cool things, including some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. So first things first, with some of the updates outside of the node running realm. QNS got some major updates over the last week. We added support for live auctions and offers. This is going to continue to get some updates along the way. There's some stuff that people have already said they'd like to have improved. We keep taking in feedback and keep shipping improvements. And, you know, the more things you ship, the more feature requests come in. We'll try to prioritize and take everybody's feedback into account, but you know, some things take time. But yeah, that's the state of QNS. We have crossed the threshold of over 100K in US dollar value transactions having occurred. We have breached 4 million wrapped Quill tokens that have been transacted for names on QNS. It's been very, very healthy progress. We had our first price update. We are taking feedback again, of course, about the pricing tiers and the relationship between that and pricing in US dollars. We're going to continue to experiment with this and reach a sweet spot for where these prices should be, as well as what the actual tiering is going to look like. But as always, we will continue to iterate and take feedback into account as we go. Next thing, Quorum Mobile. So unfortunately, I didn't get to ship this update before the talk today, and I'll talk about why in a little bit, but we are going to be shipping an update to Quorum Mobile. It'll be a full native update. You will need to download the update if you are on iOS. There's a test flight. It should automatically download for you, but you might have to go into the test flight app and pull it on Android, Google Play Beta. If you're on the Google Play Beta, then you can pull it from that. And we'll also post links to the standalone APK if you're sideloading on Android. But the big thing about this is that we're supporting a bunch of different chains. Obviously, Quilibrium as a network is supported, but we're also going to be supporting Ethereum and a multitude of EVM chains like Monad, L2s like Polygon, Arbitrum, OP, Base, and so on. Bitcoin, obviously. And then also Other L1s like Solana, Caspa, and BitTensor. This is probably, I can't say for sure, so I'm not going to say that we're going to be the first to do it, but I think we're the first to actually handle all of those different networks for a wallet in one. All of these things are going to be a reflection, as I said at the beginning of our mission. Our goal is to secure every bit of traffic on the internet, and that also includes even the public blockchains. We can't always provide privacy on public blockchains. They're public blockchains. But at the very least, there's a lot of things about the ways in which people interact with public blockchains that they don't realize is giving away a lot of information. For example, when you're using a wallet, and I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to like throw shade on any of the various wallet companies out there, but they all do this, so you can point at all of them. When you interact with a wallet, every single one of them is talking to some sort of public RPC service. Your own wallet is not scanning the blockchain itself. It is not an RPC available node. It is not actually internalizing state of the blockchain, unless you're running like a Monad wallet and it has to do a bunch of local scanning stuff. But at the end of the day, you're still talking to remote servers. And by consequence, you're giving away a lot of information. So for example, when you're using an Ethereum wallet, you're usually talking to some sort of RPC provider. Almost all of them boil down to a handful, like Infura, Alchemy, a few others. And when you do that, and you're requesting things like token balances, you're actually telling them, hey, this is my wallet address. And at the same time, if you're not behind a VPN, for example, you're giving away your IP address too. And you can be rest assured that they're logging this. And so by consequence, even if you're doing some of the things right, like you're taking really defensive precautions with how you're handling your wallets, how you're conducting transactions on the network, you're trying to do your best to stay private, you're still leaking a lot of data. And this is not just a like speculative statement, this is a actual fact. This has been used in court cases across the world. People have had their privacy essentially revoked away from them or rug pulled away from them. And that data then becomes available because you have been using these third-party APIs. And so what we're doing with Quorum Mobile is instead we are doing privacy preservation. We are running our own RPCs where possible and using our own proxies in the middle that are providing that privacy preservation when you are checking your balances or when you're checking the value of the currencies that you are holding or trading. And this extends further out, and we'll talk about that in just a sec. As we've previously discussed, our mini app support continues to grow in features and functionality. We're adding a bunch of extension APIs for developers to use that are specific to both the Quorum, like core Quorum feature set, and the Farcaster integration, being able to do things like enabling mini apps. There's quite a few out there, like Emerge. I love them. They do such cool things. It's this fun, it's kind of like a gumball machine where you insert 25 cents and you get a picture that's like generative based on usually your profile picture, but it's really fun. But the weird thing about it is that people will take the pictures, they'll post them, but they don't have a good way to set their profile picture from that. And so these are some of the like Farcaster native things that can actually bleed into Quorum native things, where you can take a mini app, it'll take your profile picture, it can generate a new photo based on whatever the trope is for the generation, and then using our extensions API that we're adding into the Mini Apps SDK, you can set your profile picture. It'll obviously prompt you to do so, but based on the content that was generated. So we're just enhancing the overall ability to do cool, fun, social things with this full Mini App integration. But also, as a consequence of supporting the wallet, we support the wallet integration into Mini Apps. The other side of this is going to be our support for swaps. This is probably one of the more useful things, and honestly, this is going to be one of the more shots fired things, even though I'm not naming wallets still. Most wallets charge you pretty rough fees. It's usually baked into like the overall amounts that they describe, and they kind of just like hide it behind a list of stuff, and usually like you have to click a little info button to see the fee breakdown because they really don't want you to know that they're taking like upwards of 5% in some cases of your transaction and pocketing it. that's just not how we operate. That's never been how Q operates. We're not an extractive company. And so our swap functionality supports a bevy of different chains, and where it's possible, we will also support gasless integration. Sometimes that's not an option, and however it works out, we still do our best to give you the best price that we can possibly provide in terms of swaps. And also, this isn't shown in the screenshots, but also control over the spread if you're wanting to do more advanced swap stuff, especially when you're dealing with like low liquidity pools. It can get really dicey if you're not careful. And we want to make sure that you're able to conduct transactions as safely and as cheaply as possible. The last piece of this is we are also doing work with our industry partners, CoinGecko and Blockade, to provide up-to-the-minute price data and secure simulation while providing privacy preservation of the queries being done to these services so that you're not leaking metadata, but still getting very strong security guarantees, for example, with Blockade, through the security of their transaction simulation feature. Now, you can skip this entirely as well if you want, but this provides you a way to know, like if you're interacting with a really sketchy mini app that somebody linked to you and you don't know if it's legit or not, this provides a really quick way to tell you, hey, this is about to try to ask you to do something absolutely insane, like send all of your tokens to them. Oh, sorry, there was one more thing. And I think you may have seen it if you looked closely at the previous screenshots, but as a Farcaster integrated app, if you are using the Farcaster app, we support the full integration flow so that you can import the warplet in the Farcaster app and use it from Quorum instead of having to go back into Farcaster. And so all of your Farcaster-based transactions and assets will flow over into Quorum if you choose to integrate with this. As always, we never do anything without users' consent. So even for the case of importing the Warpcast wallet, this is something that you have to choose to do. And that is just a philosophy we will continue to extend as we grow out features like video calls, voice calls, etc. All of those things will have to be enabled by your consent. And finally, if you're not on the beta, you can go ahead and somebody registered this domain, so I felt like I should share it. I think it's actually HTTP. I don't think they did an HTTPS link, but farcaster.pro will automatically redirect you to the iOS test flight. And below are some QNS invite codes. If you don't have one yet, here's 10 of them. Please, don't use them all in one shot, but I imagine a bunch of people are now scrambling to names.q.com. Anyway, next up is Q Storage. So Q Storage, by the way, all these things that we're discussing, except for maybe one thing, is going to be rolling out in the subsequent hours. I don't want to use the word today because one, I'm really bad about saying today, and then it's not today, especially for different time zones, but two, things can come up as have already happened. So our goal is to do Farcaster, or the Farcaster integration support and wallet support for Quorum Mobile. That's going to be rolling out in a few hours. We're still waiting to hear back from Blockade about a few things, but we'll do what we can based around that scheduling. Next is Q Storage. Q Storage is our S3 compatible API offering. This will also be rolling out in the next few hours. What's in the box? Most of S3's features. There's a few things that aren't, and if you pay close attention to the stuff that's not in the box, you'll notice like a lot of that is really specific to Amazon's own features that may not even matter, but they're things that, just to be transparent, we don't support them. So what's in the box? We support object versioning, we support multi-part uploads, ACLs and policies, cores. You can do website hosting, and you can do full host redirection. So if you have a CNAME record in DNS, you can point to a Q Storage bucket, and it will redirect and process all of the requests appropriately. We also support QNS integration, so you can do whatever the name is that you bought, .q, and under Quorum, it will resolve to the website on Q Storage. We support lifecycle rules. We support obviously encryption, and everything's encrypted. We support the object lock feature. This is relatively important more for large enterprises that have to worry about things like legal holds. We support some basic logging functionality. Obviously inventory, some analytics where it can be provided, and S3 select compatibility, which most of the S3 compatible APIs do not support S3 select, but we do. What's not in the box? Event notifications yet. That will be rolling out with our FFX support, but right now we do not support event notifications. Transfer acceleration doesn't really apply to us anyway. Same with intelligent tiering. And then getting into the Amazon specific features, we just simply do not support those things and cannot support those things. Next up is going to be QKMS. What's in the box? All of the KMS features, for the most part, the basic symmetric support, asymmetric RSA, asymmetric ECC. We also support additional, like Edwards curves. I know that AWS doesn't do that, but we do support Edwards curves. We also support SecP 256K1. So if you are doing anything with Ethereum or Bitcoin and you want to, or Tezos, and you want to support the SecP 256K1 curve that's used by those chains, we support them out of the box. We support HMAC. And for the Chinese community, we support SM2. Most people in the States or Europe aren't going to know about that one. And obviously integration with QStorage. So if you set up a QKMS key and you want to use it for encryption purposes for data that's going into QStorage, we support that and it is pluggable. Not in the box is Cloud HSM and XKS. That's just something we don't do. Cloud HSM, obviously, we do not have cloud hardware security modules. Plus, honestly, the security model of Cloud HSM is super shaky. And when you start to pry under the hood enough, as much as I have, you get really scared about how secure they are actually at all. But that's what's going to be in the box for QKMS, and this too is going to be rolling out over the next few hours. QConsole. I'm showing you some old screenshots because I am not ready to show the updated UI just yet. But QStorage and QKMS are supported in QConsole. It's very easy to, especially for QStorage, to just drag and drop files and immediately launch your site. We're quite proud of the flow that we have here because we have essentially 2 clicks to launch a website, which it's kind of an engineering challenge to make work, but it's we believe at least it is the easiest way for you to host a website, and it's also one of the cheapest. We're going to be rolling out our support initially with the free tier. So for those who are wanting to create a small website, 5 gigabytes or less in total data being stored, we will be rolling out the free tier for that. We will also have paid tiers, a pay-as-you-go tier that works in crypto or in fiat billing, as well as a monthly billing option. There's going to be a few like different things that apply with that based on your region and based on a few other factors. QKMS also has its own free tier. If you've ever seen Amazon's pricing model for KMS, it is a no-brainer to want to use QKMS just because it is obscene to charge $1 a key a month, and we don't do that. There's no fee per key. It is broken down into per request, and in fact has its own free tier as well. So that wraps up basically the development that's been going on in the past few weeks and past week in particular. A lot of these things are going to be rolling out, as I said, over the next few hours, give or take. We're going to be trying to get the Quorum mobile release out first, especially because we still have to go through Apple's approval process. Generally, it's not too rough since we've already gone through their approval process before, but nevertheless, it's still something that can have a gotcha, and so I just want to be transparent that some of these things take more time. But nevertheless, that is what is going to be coming out over the next few hours. Except I do want to mention that there's one more thing. So as I was talking about with QStorage and QKMS, they both use certain primitives of Quilibrium. And in the QStorage case, that is primarily the hypergraph. We use verifiable encryption to provide both data integrity because of the way that it does the Reed-Solomon encoding when it is constructing the verifiable encryption proofs and then distributing them. But it's also utilizing the hypergraph itself to provide locatability of data and distribution over the overall set of shards. In the case of our free our free tier, that is actually being done using an alt-fee app basis app shard, so that way people can't just go in, create a free account somehow, bypass whatever basic checks we have to try to prevent Sybils or whatever, and then try to flood the network with a bunch of crap to increase the overall storage. No, we don't do that. If you're using the free tier, we do the alt-fee basis app shards. There is no impact on network storage. It's only when you're in the paid tiers that you actually get the full-blown replication through the network. But that is an important thing to think about. These primitives that have been built over the years are intrinsic to how we can offer services like QStorage and offer services like QKMS. QKMS uses the oblivious transfer primitive inside of our compute operation that lets you achieve multi-party compute of keys so that we can provide distributed key management without actually being a key custodian ourselves. That is a very powerful unlock that there's very few other companies even doing a sliver of what we're doing. But the really cool thing about this, despite the fact that we're offering great tools that power the web, is that they're very composable. When you create a storage object inside of the hypergraph, that is an addressable object. And an addressable object is something that can be referenced, and it can be referenced by the other intrinsics. And so, for example, if you store a key shard encrypted on the hypergraph, QKMS can use that by pulling it through to the compute primitive, using it for the multi-party computation steps required to perform signatures and produce a signature output. That's a very simple composition, but there's a variety of complex compositions that are possible. And one of those things that we're doing, and we've been working with a few folks to provide a powerful composition, is that on our S3 compatible API, there's a lot of things that people are building, like websites. People are building things like games where they need to store this data. And when you're creating a video game, for example, you have a lot of assets, and you tend to, if you're distributing the build of the game, you've got potentially hundreds of gigabytes in the extreme case of content that needs to be saved on the user's device, and it may not always apply to them, but it is important in order to play the game. If you've ever played a game like Fortnite, for example, you have found yourself having to wait through a lobby load where sometimes you're seeing the default skins of characters as the actual assets are loading in. That is a great example of a game that has so many assets that it is impossible for the game to actually just store all of them on your device. That is just simply too expensive to do. Plus, it reveals a lot if they're wanting to roll out new assets as time goes on. And so, because of this problem, and because oftentimes when you're playing games with a lot of assets like that, it's typically something that's being purchased, one of the powerful compositions is taking the notion of a standardized model of how digital assets in the 3D space can be represented and tie it into the token-based model of Quilibrium so that people can own copies of those digital assets. And so later this week, we are going to be publishing Quark. Quark is a library that enables you to integrate with QStorage, and it supports 3D objects with motion primitives, basically like the bones and the animation steps and stuff, required to put these 3D objects into your games. And it integrates with our token primitive to provide tokenized ownership support. And very similarly with our marketplace concept, these are things that can be also bought and sold, traded, etc. And the first fleet of integrations that we're going to be supporting will allow us to plug into Unity, Unreal, FireOx, and Godot. So that is one of our more powerful examples of the ways in which these integrations are going to essentially multiply, like be force multipliers for themselves as development goes on with Quilibrium. And if you are a builder that wants to get involved and wants to get access to our early features, not just Quark, but things that we haven't publicly announced yet, and you're working in any of the spaces that we've talked about before, whether it's video games or streaming or like financial products, reach out to us. We're always very open to work with new partners. We have a pretty decent cohort of companies that have been itching to release some of their things. and there's still many that are coming along the way. So as always, reach out to us. We are here for you, and we will be more than happy to support you in your development efforts and also give you a decent amount of credit so that you can do these things free of charge, because you will be giving us really great feedback as we build out more and more features. So that wraps things up. Essentially, those are the things that I wanted to talk about in today's dev update. I would have loved to give a tour of some of this, but unfortunately the pacing of things just didn't work out quite right. So we're going to go ahead. Like I said, these streams are typically targeted for Sunday. And we will try to actually hit that this time. I don't expect any more things happening in my family that would take me away from the weekend. So look forward to next Sunday. We'll be talking through some of these features post-release, and also potentially talking about some of the other things that we're going to be rolling out in the coming weeks. I'm going to take a brief opportunity while we're at this point to look at the various chats and see if anybody has any questions. I've had questions coming through by multiple channels, so I'm going to try to see all of them this time. Very sorry I missed some of them last time on Telegram. I didn't even think to look on there. But I'll take a quick look. Let's see. All right. Okay, cool. So how many backup / replicas does a file have on QStorage? For paid tiers, can we handle them or even by geo accessibility? Okay, I'm not quite sure about that second question, but in terms of replicas, if it's on the free tier is just replicated within our own infrastructure. We do meet a replication standard, multiple, I don't want to say availability zones because we don't use AWS and we don't, I mean, that's just not rhetoric we bother with, but we have multiple data centers in multiple geographic regions where data lives. This data is encrypted. Even when you're on a public bucket, it's still encrypted at rest. There's obviously a key that is provided to do the live transmission of that content when a request is made. But as far as that goes, like at the free tier, replication is limited to Q Inc. If it's on the network, replication is broad. It happens according to the same replication standard for any data on the protocol, including the tokens. And that is roughly, for a given shard, can be anywhere between 24 to 28 geographically distributed nodes, upwards of 32. Once you get past 32, then it starts to break down into smaller shards. So it really depends on how much content you're storing and how large that content is, but that's the gist of it. It's distributed through multiple shards and multiple nodes, and the way that it is constructed is such that you can lose some of those nodes and you'll still be able to reconstruct the data. And we have very strong guarantees around the availability of that data on the network, such that if there are nodes that go down and reach a certain threshold, even like we're seeing with the tokens itself right now, if we don't reach that availability level, that can actually induce network halts, which is part of the incentive model to ensure that nodes are participating and storing that data. For paid tiers, can we handle them or even by geo accessibility? I still don't know what that question means. I know that you just responded to the first one, but like if you can clarify that, I'm happy to answer it. I just don't understand what the question means. Does API for QStorage, will it be available or SDK to be able to upload images / files ourselves? Yeah. So like I said, it's S3 compatible, so you can actually just use the standard AWS CLI if you want. You can use the REST API, you can use the old school XML API if you want to use that. We have like full compatibility with practically all of the standard AWS S3 API. The only difference is that you would change the endpoint, you'd change the API keys, which you would generate on QConsole, and you change their region instead of like US East 1 or whatever. It would be Q World 1. I think some of the tooling even actually doesn't care, but that's at least the name internally that it represents itself as, and you'll see it as. So yeah, same thing with KMS. For the QKMS API, it is KMS compatible, There are some specific caveats around QKMS because QKMS uses MPC, so there is additional tooling that you'll need alongside the SDK if you're using the KMS integration, like the KMS API. But at the end of the day, like for your direct integration needs, it does use the KMS API. So you just, again, switch the endpoint, switch the region, switch the API key. But there is a little bit more extra stuff you'll need to do. And QConsole will give you the instructions on what you need to do in order to do that, as well as our docs site. So I think that's it. Oh, wait. When can we expect QClient? Okay, yeah. So QClient, we're going to be targeting alongside the release of 2.10.18. The reason why we haven't done that yet, as I've mentioned a few times before, but it's worth repeating, is that as we've been rolling out these 2.10 variants, there's been subtle changes we've made to the protocol that were required in order to fix certain issues as they came up, because sometimes architecture needed tweaking in order to resolve certain bugs that we were experiencing. And yes, I see that that bot. I'm going to remove that. Anyway, so there's some changes that we had to make along the way. And one of the things we found when we've released like earlier versions of QClient during the 2.0 era is we would find people are still using the old version, even though we had a new version available that did things potentially the right way, easier, etc. And so we did not want to release QClient until we were at a point that we could be fully confident that that is going to be the version that we're willing to support and not have to deal with, like, you know, support questions for older versions. And I think that about wraps it up, but I'll check a few other comms channels real quick. I wish we had like one single source to do all of these because it does get a little difficult to catch all the questions in one shot. So I really hope that I am getting everyone's question. I think that's it though. Oh, actually, I did just get reminded by seeing something. So one last thing around QNS, there were some folks that requested refunds on like some extra transactions they did. Just as a thing to reiterate, one, we're happy to process them. That's not a problem at all. But some people have requested specifically that we cancel their refund requests because the pricing tiers have changed. And any transactions that happened prior to that pricing tier change, those transactions are still applicable at the tiers that they previously applied to. So if you sent a 500 quill worth transaction for a 3-character name, for example, you are more than free to cancel the refund request and use that previous transaction that was unapplied to buy a 3 or few character name on QNS. Just wanted to get that out there because there's been a few different places where this gets mentioned offhandedly and then people are like, oh, I didn't know that. I want to cancel the refund request. So just wanted to say this here because I know a lot of people get a lot of their information from here and a few announcement places. So just wanted to make sure that that was out of the way. But yeah, I think that actually wraps things up. So next, well, this upcoming Sunday, we're going to do a deeper dive on the development side. We'll walk through the process of deploying websites on QStorage, setting up QKMS so that you can do the key interactions. Like if, for example, if you want to build the group wallets that we're going to be supporting in Quorum Mobile, here's how you do it. Things like that. So look forward to seeing you all next Sunday. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful week. We'll see you soon. All right. Bye, folks.